All right, so today we're going to really dig into this idea of resilience,
Okay.
specifically how it plays out in Black communities. And
Interesting.
we've got this great article that's kind of our jumping off point today. It's called
Okay.
The Untold Truth About Black Communities and Their Resilience.
Yeah.
And, just reading through it, it really makes you think about how much strength we're talking about here.
Definitely.
So the article starts out by saying resilience in this context.
Yeah.
It's more than just bouncing back.
Right.
It's about actually thriving in spite of the challenges.
Right.
And it connects that to cultural strength, to community support,
Yeah.
and individual determination.
Yeah.
Like, what's the most essential element there?
It's hard to pick just one
Yeah.
because they all kind of feed into each other.
Right.
But I think the historical context is huge. Like, you can't really understand the resilience without understanding the challenges that Black communities have faced and overcome for so long. It informs that grit and the determination
Right.
and even how those support systems you mentioned, how they developed.
Okay, so let's talk about that history then. The article doesn't shy away from the hard stuff.
No, it doesn't.
Slavery, Jim Crow laws, systemic racism, it's all right there.
Yeah, it lays it all out.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just about enduring hardship.
Right.
Black communities didn't just sit back and accept these injustices.
Exactly.
They actively built spaces of empowerment within those challenging circumstances.
That's a good point.
The article mentions things like churches and mutual aid societies and all the organizations that formed during the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
These weren't just places of refuge, were they?
Oh, absolutely not. They were centers for community building, for collective action,
Okay.
for sharing knowledge and skills. Think about the role of churches during the civil rights movement. I mean, they were organizing centers and sanctuaries and just a source of unwavering strength.
So the article talks about the civil rights movement as this prime example of resilience in action.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really get into how those peaceful protests, even when met with violence, how they fostered that strength.
Well, imagine the courage it took to stand up against these systems of
Yeah.
oppression that were so deeply ingrained. The civil rights movement wasn't just about demanding rights.
Right.
It was about reclaiming dignity, affirming humanity, and really forging an identity
Okay.
that was rooted in resilience.
So that makes me think about the whole idea of cultural strength that the article brings up.
Yeah.
It emphasizes how shared history, traditions, values, all of that plays a huge role in creating this sense of belonging and identity.
Absolutely. It's like this unbroken thread that
Yeah.
connects generations. It provides continuity,
Yeah.
strength. And within that cultural tapestry, family ties are just so vital.
Right. And the article talks about how those strong family ties provide emotional support,
Of course.
but also they act as this practical safety net.
Yeah, it's not just having someone to lean on emotionally.
Right.
It's about having that network you can rely on for practical help, whether it's childcare, financial assistance, or just navigating challenges.
Right.
And those tight-knit family structures became even more important,
Yeah.
considering all the systemic barriers that Black communities were up against.
Now, the article also mentions events like Kwanzaa and Juneteenth, and it says that they reinforce cultural identity.
Yeah.
But I wonder if you could expand on that a bit. Like, how do those celebrations actually do that?
Okay, well, let's take Kwanzaa, for example.
Yeah.
It's not just a holiday. It's a whole week-long celebration
Right.
that's centered around these 7 core principles,
Okay.
like unity, self-determination, collective responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith.
Wow. Okay.
And each day focuses on one of those principles, and families come together, they reflect, they have these meaningful discussions. They participate in activities that really reinforce those values.
So it's not just about, like, gifts and festivities.
Oh, not at all.
It's about actively passing down traditions and values
Right.
that actually contribute to that strength and resilience.
Exactly. And then you have Juneteenth,
Right.
which commemorates the emancipation of enslaved African Americans.
Yeah.
It's this powerful reminder of the struggle for freedom and the importance of preserving that hard-won liberty.
Yeah.
These celebrations, they're not just about looking back. They're about carrying those lessons forward into the present and the future.
And it seems like music, dance, art, all of that.
Yeah.
They play a similar role, right?
Absolutely. They provide this powerful outlet for expressing joy,
Yeah.
processing trauma, building community cohesion. Think about spirituals during slavery.
Right.
They were more than just songs, they were coded messages
Oh, well, yeah.
of hope, resistance, longing for freedom.
Wow.
And today, we see Black artists using their platform to speak truth to power. Yeah.
To celebrate their heritage, to inspire social change.
Right.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it strikes me that these forms of expression aren't just about resilience within Black communities, right?
Right.
They're also about sharing that resilience with the wider world.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Think about the global impact of jazz,
Yeah.
blues, hip-hop, these art forms born out of the Black experience.
Right.
They've transcended cultural boundaries,
Yeah.
become these sources of inspiration and connection for people all over.
So the article then shifts gears a bit and talks about the power of community networks.
Okay.
It's not just about family, is it?
No, it extends to neighbors,
Yeah.
friends, local organizations,
Right.
this intricate web of support
Yeah.
that helps people navigate everyday challenges to major life crises.
I'm curious about the specific ways these networks operate.
Okay.
The article mentions financial literacy programs
Right.
and mental health support,
Right.
but a concrete example would be helpful. Sure, think about community gardens in urban neighborhoods.
Okay.
They provide access to fresh food,
Right.
often where grocery stores are scarce,
Yeah.
but there's so much more than that.
Right.
They become gathering places,
Right.
spaces for skill-sharing platforms, for community building.
Okay.
Really embody that spirit of collective resilience.
And the article really emphasizes the importance of education as a pathway to empowerment.
Yeah.
But it acknowledges that access to quality education is still a major issue. Do you see any signs of progress in that area?
Well, there are pockets of innovation.
Okay.
We're seeing a movement towards culturally responsive teaching,
Okay.
incorporating diverse perspectives and histories into the curriculum.
Yeah.
And there are these amazing community-led programs offering tutoring, mentorship, scholarships to help students from underserved communities.
But the article points out that real systemic change is needed to really level the playing field. It feels like there's still such a long way to go.
You're right. There are these deep-seated inequities that we need to address.
Yeah.
But I think what's important is that these conversations are happening. We're seeing more attention being paid to school funding disparities,
Right.
the achievement gap, the need for diverse teachers and
Well,
administrators.
Speaking of raising awareness and demanding change, the article talks about activism
Right?
as a key element of that resilience. It highlights how movements like the Civil Rights Movement and Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
they've really shaped the fight for justice and equality.
They've been instrumental in bringing about social and political change.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to consider how the tools and tactics of activism
Right.
have evolved, especially with social media.
The article touches on that, mentioning how social media and online platforms have become powerful tools
Absolutely.
for raising awareness and mobilizing support. But are there any downsides to relying so heavily on social media for activism?
That's a good question. On the one hand, social media has democratized activism.
Cool.
It allows people to connect, share information quickly, organize protests or campaigns really fast.
Yeah.
But it also creates this pressure to be on all the time, to
Right.
perform activism for an audience,
Right.
and can prioritize those viral moments over sustained action,
Right.
strategic action.
Okay, so there are both opportunities and challenges to navigate in this digital landscape of activism.
It's like any tool,
Yeah.
right? It depends how it's used.
And I think it's important to remember that effective activism,
Yeah,
it requires more than just online engagement.
absolutely.
It needs to be grounded in community organizing,
Right.
strategic planning, a deep understanding of the issues.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a bit, the article dives into the concept of economic resilience.
Okay.
It acknowledges the historical inequalities that have created this wealth gap,
Right.
but it also highlights how Black communities are creating their own paths
Yeah.
to economic independence.
There's so much innovation happening there.
Yeah.
We're seeing this surge in Black-owned businesses,
Okay.
particularly in sectors like technology, beauty, wellness,
Right.
and a growing interest in cooperative business models.
It's interesting the article mentions those briefly.
Yeah.
What makes them particularly relevant to the idea of resilience in Black communities?
Well, cooperative businesses are inherently rooted in collaboration,
Okay.
shared ownership, community benefit.
Hmm.
They offer an alternative to those traditional hierarchical structures
Right.
and provide opportunities for people to pool resources,
Okay.
build wealth together,
Mm-hmm.
create businesses that prioritize well-being.
So it's about more than just individual success.
Right.
It's about building a more equitable
Yeah,
and sustainable economic system
precisely.
from the ground up.
And there are also initiatives focused on financial literacy and access to capital, which are crucial for empowering individuals and communities.
Now, the article doesn't shy away from the more challenging aspects of resilience.
No, it doesn't.
It brings up the often overlooked topic of mental health.
Right, it's a conversation we need to have.
The trauma of systemic racism, poverty,
Yeah.
cultural stigma
Uh,
creates unique mental health challenges for Black communities.
and often those struggles are compounded by limited access to quality, culturally competent mental health care.
The article talks about the importance of breaking down the stigma surrounding mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some concrete steps that can be taken to address this issue?
I think it starts with open conversations about mental health.
Okay.
Within families, communities, workplaces.
Right.
We need to create safe spaces for people to share their struggles without fear of judgment and invest in training more Black mental health professionals.
Okay.
Make mental health care more affordable
Right.
and accessible.
I feel like we've just scratched the surface here. There's just so much to unpack
It's really multifaceted.
when it comes to resilience in Black communities.
Yeah, and I think what's most striking is that it's not just about
Yeah.
overcoming individual challenges. It's this collective strength rooted in shared history, the culture,
Right.
this deep sense of community.
And the article does lay out the historical context, the cultural factors, the ways that this resilience manifests. But for our listener who maybe isn't as familiar,
Right.
what's the most crucial takeaway? What should they remember from this whole deep dive?
I think the most important thing is that the resilience of Black communities, it's not just about survival. It's a story of ongoing triumph
Right.
and contribution to society.
Yeah.
Despite facing these obstacles and
Yeah.
enduring generations of injustice,
Right.
Black communities have not only persevered but thrived. They've innovated and enriched our nation in countless ways.
It makes you wonder what other communities facing their own unique challenges,
Yeah.
what they can learn from this.
That's a great point. Imagine if we could distill those key elements,
Yeah.
the community support, celebrating heritage,
Yeah.
the commitment to education and activism,
Right.
and use that to empower other marginalized groups or communities.
Almost like a blueprint for building resilience.
Exactly.
Not just for individuals, but for whole communities. We've talked about these specific examples, but could those same principles
Yeah.
be adapted to address things like poverty,
Sure.
discrimination, even climate change in other parts of the world?
Definitely worth exploring. The strategies might need to be tailored,
Okay.
but those underlying principles,
Yeah.
fostering community, celebrating identity,
Right.
empowering people through education, economic opportunity,
Hmm.
I think that could have a profound impact.
On building resilience in so many different settings.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been such an insightful conversation.
I agree.
I feel like we've only just begun to explore this.
It's a rich topic.
What are your final thoughts for our listeners as they continue to think about this?
I would encourage them to go beyond just admiring this resilience from afar.
Okay.
Seek out opportunities to engage with Black communities in your own area.
Yeah.
Support Black-owned businesses, attend cultural events,
Right.
learn from the history and the lived experiences.
Yeah.
True understanding and appreciation come from genuine connection.
Absolutely. Well said. This deep dive has been a powerful reminder.
It has.
Resilience is not just about enduring hardship.
Right.
It's about harnessing strength, creativity, community to create a better future. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration.
Thank you.
We hope it sparks further learning and reflection for you, our listener.